Elon Musk's recent formation of a new political party, the America Party, is a move that directly challenges the established bipartisan system in the United States. Musk states his motivation is to restore freedom to the populace, explicitly targeting excessive government spending and inefficiency. His decision to launch a new party follows a notable divergence from President Donald Trump, with whom he had previously aligned and significantly funded during the 2024 election cycle. This schism deepened over Trump's Big Beautiful Bill, a comprehensive tax reform measure that Musk vehemently opposed, characterizing it as an insane spending bill destined to inflate the national debt. His frustration, it appears, culminated in the conviction that neither of the dominant political parties adequately champions fiscal responsibility and individual liberty. Prior to this, Musk was granted leadership over the newly formed Department for Government Efficiency, DOGE, within the Trump administration. While the acronym playfully echoes the decentralized cryptocurrency Dogecoin, a digital meme that Musk famously championed as a symbol for financial liberation from traditional systems, the core purpose of this new department was distinctly governmental. Doge was conceived as a direct effort to address what Musk and the administration perceived as staggering waste and inefficiency within the federal bureaucracy, with a lofty goal of identifying and eliminating potentially trillions in spending cuts. Throughout his public discourse on fiscal policy and governmental reform, Musk occasionally invoked the name of Milton Friedman, the renowned free market economist, Nobel laureate, and a personal inspiration of mine when determining the economics of Azadism, a Sikhi-based political economic philosophy. Friedman famously articulated the virtues of minimal government intervention, sound money, and individual liberty, and has improved the lives of billions due to his efforts. Musk's repeated references to Friedman suggested a profound alignment with these principles, a belief that a disciplined, streamlined government could indeed encapsulate the very essence of economic freedom. However, as the operations of Doge unfolded, it became increasingly evident that Musk, despite his undeniable genius in engineering and business, may not have fully apprehended all of Friedman's works, particularly his book titled Tyranny of the Status Quo. In this book, Milton and his wife, Rose Friedman, meticulously detailed how entrenched special interests, lobbying groups, bureaucracy, and the pragmatic demands of political survival coalesced to resist any meaningful systemic changes, even in the presence of a clear public mandate. Friedman himself had attempted a similar effort to Doge under Ronald Reagan's administration, but encountered significant frustration during his advisory roles to government bodies aimed at reducing spending and increasing efficiency, often finding his efforts undermined by the very systems he sought to reform. It is this fundamental resistance, that detailed in Friedman's own experiences, that Musk confronted directly with Doge. Whilst he was able to identify and cut some spending in certain mostly low consequential areas, as soon as he went anywhere near the military-industrial complex, one of the largest sources of expenses and waste, he faced immense unyielding resistance from Congress and those with powerful vested interests. You can see why then Musk expressed frustrations, exposing Trump with Epstein and deciding to form his own America Party. This subsequent political venture stands as a testament to his persistent dissatisfaction with the existing paradigms and the immense difficulty of reforming them from within. This brings us on to the title of this piece, the Liberty Revolution Paradox. In moments of national or civil decline, what is often needed most is not surface-level adjustments, but deep structural reform, a revolution. Yet, ironically, throughout modern history, it is most often socialists who step into the revolutionary spotlight. Socialist movements hold a clear advantage in their ability to mobilize popular support. They bypass the complexities of economic reasoning and speak directly to emotion. Their narratives are carefully built around grievances and perceived injustices, and they are often highly effective at assigning blame. Whether pointing fingers at the rich, immigrants, or other convenient targets, they tap into powerful emotional currents like fear, envy, and resentment. However, their actual outcomes typically involve replacing one centrally controlled system with another, just with a new branding and led by a different group of central planners. Quote from the Azadist Manifesto, Section 5, the Mughals replaced the Luddites, Lenin was brought to power after deposing the Tsar, and Hitler too inherited the status of Führer via democratic means. Simply replacing one centrally planned state with another, one authoritarian regime with the next, is not the solution. The problem is the state itself, too much power concentrated into too few hands." End quote. Yet, these emotionally driven narratives appeal to people searching for overly simple answers to complex problems. A liberty-based revolution, by contrast, faces a much harder challenge. Its goal is not to wield power, but to devolve and decentralize it. It seeks to limit the size and scope of the state, remove layers of central planning, and open space for genuine economic freedom. But appreciation of this path requires education, critical thinking, and an understanding of how markets actually work. Intelligence requires effort to obtain, whilst ignorance is easy. Explaining concepts like price signals, supply and demand, opportunity cost, or the economic calculation problem is far more intellectually demanding than promising to tax the rich or cancel debt. The liberty argument asks people to think long-term, resist instant gratification, and appreciate the unseen cost of intervention. Yet the society we have today operate on destroyed attention spans, addicted to cheap hits of dopamine, with no time or desire to put the effort into gaining deeper understanding. Many are living paycheck to paycheck, naturalizing short-term thinking rather than long-term generational thinking. In a time of widespread discontent, the hard but necessary thing is ignored in place of the rhetoric that pulls on people's heartstrings. These environments are a breeding ground for demagogues. One such figure is Gary Stevenson in the United Kingdom. A former bond trader, Stevenson has built a large audience by claiming that inequality is the root cause of modern economic problems. He argues that concentrated wealth has caused wages to stagnate and housing prices to soar, and he advocates for steep wealth taxes on individuals with assets over £10 million. His message clearly resonates with many, especially young people frustrated by the cost of living. But from the standpoint of sound economic thinking, Stevenson's proposals are deeply flawed. His argument that excessive wealth accumulation is the primary driver of economic dysfunction fails to grapple with the root causes of inequality or the unintended consequences of forcibly redistributing wealth. At the heart of Stevenson's argument is the fallacious view of the economy as a fixed pie. If some have more, others must have less. This static view ignores the dynamic nature of capital creation and productivity. Wealth is not hoarded under mattresses, and the rich do not eat the money they make. Instead, when money is deposited into banks, it is in turn deployed through investment and access to finance. It is used to build and expand businesses, fund innovation, enable entrepreneurship, and support jobs. When capital is taxed aggressively simply for existing, it is discouraged from doing these very things. The result is not just less excess wealth, but fewer investments, fewer new businesses, and slower growth, especially for those at the bottom who depend most on a thriving economy to generate opportunity. Stevenson's approach also assumes that central authorities can fairly and efficiently reallocate resources on behalf of society, but history shows otherwise. Whenever governments are given broad powers to decide who should have what, inefficiency, cronyism, and corruption follow close behind. Bureaucracies are not equipped to measure economic merit or to understand the countless individual trade-offs that people make in a free market. Instead of empowering the many, central redistribution empowers the few. Stevenson's hypocrisy becomes apparent here, since the very same government he critiques for the mismanagement of the economy, he advocates for more money to be handed to them via taxation. Furthermore, his proposals risk undermining the long-term trust that individuals have in the rules of the game. When success becomes a liability, when accumulating wealth invites punishment rather than recognition, people naturally begin to pull back. They invest less, they take fewer risks, and allocate capital defensively. Over time, this erodes the very base of wealth creation, leading to slower wage growth, stagnating productivity, and even more acute inequality than before. Many are now fleeing the UK, taking their wealth and talent to create wealth with them. In a recent article by Business Insider, it is estimated the UK is set to lose 16,500 millionaires in 2025, more than any other country on record. Why then be surprised the wealth generators of your economy flee when they are being demonized by the masses led by the likes of Stevenson and other Marxist fools? Most importantly, Stevenson overlooks how deeply the current economic imbalances are rooted in past government interventions. Distorted interest rates, manipulated currency systems, overregulation, and a tax code riddled with loopholes. These are not products of unrestrained markets. They are byproducts of political interference. Yet his solution is to introduce more of the very force that caused the distortion in the first place. In the end, Stevenson's vision offers comfort, not clarity. It tells people what they want to hear, that their struggles are caused by someone else's excess, and that fairness can be restored through government action. But economic reality is more complex. Real solutions require difficult choices, unwinding monopolistic protections, reforming the systems that enable artificial gains, restraining government spending, and allowing markets to function freely, without political favoritism or expansions of the money supply by central banks. This path of enabling liberty may be less emotionally satisfying and require a degree of education to appreciate, but it is far more likely to deliver prosperity over time. What makes this situation sadly ironic is that the groups who would stand to gain the most from a true liberty revolution are often the first to oppose it. Many are pulled in by the promise of quick fixes and redistributive programs that, in the long run, reinforce the same cycle of dependency and stagnation that caused the problem in the first place. This brings us to Javier Milei, the incumbent president of Argentina. His approach is strikingly congruent with the radical stances adopted by Friedman in his later years, when the venerable economist openly advocated for the outright abolition of entire government departments and the ruthless cutting out all the fat from the state apparatus. Milei, a self-proclaimed anarcho-capitalist, as well as someone who I would personally classify as attempting Azadism in practice, albeit a bit too fast for me, However, Argentina's situation is already quite drastic, so perhaps this could be overlooked, has embarked on an audacious program of rapid deregulation, aggressive privatization, and stringent fiscal austerity in a nation long crippled by chronic economic mismanagement and hyperinflation. His ideas echo the later views of Milton Friedman, who in his final years called not just for efficiency, but for the outright elimination of many government departments and programs. Milei's strategy is by any measure a high-stakes endeavour. It constitutes a shock therapy approach, a method that even I had expressed caution when he had first came to power, as I was worried it may be too much too fast. However, when confronted with extreme problems, extreme solutions are often not merely warranted but necessary. Argentina's economic predicament is a direct consequence of decades of pervasive interventionist policies. What then has been the progress of Milei's experiment? After just over a year in office, Milei has achieved several notable milestones. He successfully eliminated the fiscal deficit, a feat Argentina had not accomplished in 16 years, and has drastically reduced monthly inflation. Upon assuming office in December 2023, monthly inflation stood at an astounding 25.5%. By early 2025, reports indicated a reduction to as low as 2.2%, which is actually insane. This has been accomplished through severe reductions in public sector employment, wages, pensions, and government expenditures, including 77.2% cut in central government capital expenditures in 2024. He also significantly curtailed energy subsidies and transfers to provinces, reasserting fiscal discipline and forcing a realignment of the economy. Milei's administration has concurrently undertaken widespread deregulation, reducing the number of ministries from 18 to 8, dismissing 37,000 public employees, and abolishing hundreds of bureaucratic departments, demonstrating a clear intent to get the state out of the way. Concrete examples of this deregulation's impact are already emerging. The tearing up of Argentina's rent control law in late 2024 led to a staggering 195% jump in the supply of rental housing in Buenos Aires within months, with median asking prices falling by approximately 10%. On major real estate platforms, traditional rental listings surged by 180%. The new Open Skies policy has spurred an increase in airline services and routes, while ending Buy Argentina laws and easing import licensing has resulted in price drops for clothing by 20% and home appliances by 35%. Furthermore, ending the requirement for public employees to use expensive state airlines and allowing over-the-counter medicines to be sold by more businesses has fostered competition and reduced costs. Early economic indicators also reveal a remarkable rebound, with Argentina's economy positing a 7.6% year-on-year growth rate in the second quarter of 2025, its strongest in nearly 2 decades, fueled by these very deregulations and public spending cuts. Milei is demonstrating that the shock therapy of liberty, when applied unflinchingly, can indeed resuscitate an economy strangled by decades of interventionism. He represents a genuine, forceful attempt to shatter the tyranny of the status quo, aiming to dislodge the deeply entrenched interests that have consistently profited from the dysfunctional existing system. His presidency is, unequivocally, an intriguing and critical case study in whether such a radical, liberty-focused revolution can succeed where incremental, cautious change has repeatedly proven ineffectual. Additionally, Milei's experiment is important not just for Argentina, but as a broader test of whether liberty-based revolutions can succeed in the modern world. He is attempting something that Milton Friedman himself warned was almost impossible, confronting the entrenched interests that benefit from inefficiency, corruption, and the status quo. Whether he succeeds or fails, the effort itself is significant. Azadis should continue to keep an eye on his progress. The Liberty Revolution paradox highlights a central problem faced by advocates of economic freedom: how to inspire large numbers of people to support ideas that require education, discipline, and long-term thinking, rather than slogans and emotional appeals. If liberty is to become more than a niche philosophy, it must be grounded in a culture that values reason over reaction and understanding over outrage. This is not about trendy activism or one-off protest. It is about building a lasting foundation of knowledge. That means reading the works of economists like Friedman, Mises, and Hayek. It means understanding how markets function, why central planning fails, and how genuine prosperity is created through voluntary exchange, not coercive redistribution. When a country is so drunk on government intervention, the solution isn't more of that alcohol. Before one can get sober, they must go through a hangover. If you are serious about changing the world for the better, it starts with getting serious about economics. The fight for liberty would not be won by those who yell the loudest, but by those who think the clearest. That thinking is only obtained through genuine, fearless vigil. Join our Sangha and engage in debate and discourse on these subjects. To refine and stress test your thinking, to do so is part of the real revolution, the liberation. 와이르지 하사 와이르지기 파데